Hello and welcome to Grand Theft Papercut. You might remember this. This was my Ludum Dare 32 game that I never actually got to finish. It had a little bit of an open world. Well, not that open because it is closed off very quickly at a few key points to keep you from going too far and noticing that the world isn't actually very big. It's just because I didn't have time to actually build it bigger. And oh, there's actually an error right there. See that black part right there? That means there's nothing there, when there should be something there. Anyhow, this is play mode, where you can go and attack this person, which gets you into the card game mode, where you can select a card and then play it. And depending on where you click, allows you to select different cards. Am I displaying my mouse on this recording? I am not sure. But in any case, it does stack overflow when you get to the end of a round, which is rather unfortunate. There's also, of course, the map editor, which you can access when you right-click, which allows you to scroll up and down when you go through things, and you can click them to place whatever's in your inventory, whatever you have currently selected, which was blank, and then you can right-click to copy something. So I can just immediately copy stuff over, and you can move around and stuff, and that's all well and good, and you also exit straight out of the game, but it saves where you're at. But that's not what I'm here for. Here I'm for the code today, because a couple people were saying that they would like to know how it worked. So back when I first mentioned it, it was just one file. It was a main file. Since then, I haven't worked on this since the Ludum Dare ended. Well, that's not strictly true. I have done a little bit, but that's not on the code that I'm showing you right now. Anyhow, they asked how this worked. Back then, it was just a main file, so I'm going to start with the main file, but the main file is very simple. It just loads the game state library, and loads a game state that's called menu, and then switches to it. Then menu does a bit more, but not too much really. It just excuse me. Oh yes, I'm using a new microphone today. I got a headset because I am often away from my main computer, which means I'm not able to record because I don't have my mic, or I have to take my mic with me, and then it's difficult to take it down and set it up somewhere else, and sometimes I screw things up because it's difficult. So yeah, I wanted to avoid doing that. I'm also using a different font in this editor than I used to. I'm not sure if I'll keep it this way or not, because it's a little janky in some places, which is odd, like the periods right here. This period almost looks like a comma in my mind, and also this C looks really strange. But that's neither here nor there. This is, there's some values here that help it figure out how to do these things. To be honest, I'm not sure how these printf statements work. I really need to learn that better, but it draws a menu, and then depending on if you click left or click right, it'll switch to the play game state or the editor game state. I am not going to look at the play game state because that was a hastily coded mess that I did in the very last hour of the competition, because that was all the time I had left, and it's very dirty hacky. That's not to say that the editor is much better, but that was particularly dirty hacky, and I really don't want to go over it. So we're using inspect library to debug. Yeah, it actually isn't being used. Maybe it is. If I comment it out, we can find out for sure, because it'll crash if it was being used. The serialize library is used to save the map data, and the cron library is used for timing. This makes things run a little faster and makes me have to type less. So we set LG and LK for love graphics and love keyboard. We have the tile set and NPC set, which is, oh yes, loaded on the initialization, which is down here. We have a scale, because this is based off of Game Boy dimensions, so we have a scale, which is going to be 2 times what an actual Game Boy screen would be in pixels, and then a tile size, which is 16. 16 is our tile size, and then we multiply it by scale to get the actual value, the proper value. We have a player object, camera object, and NPCs object. Let me go ahead and open those up for you. It's player, camera, and NPCs, not NPC set. NPCs is just some data, health, attack, defense, and their cards, which are special values that tell it which cards to get, ID, and where they are. The ID, I don't even know why that's there. It's kind of redundant, because this is one, but it's I don't want to talk about it. It's bad. Camera. The camera is based off of the top left corner, so it's X and Y are 1 to start with by default. The player gets random cards, so we have a bit of randomization here. Health, attack, defense, kind of the same thing. They don't have an ID though. I was yawning while talking. I'm sorry if that was bothering you. Oh yes, image is, the image is loaded after fixing the image filter. It's loaded by another thing. It's loaded right here. Yes, player.image equals lg.newImage dude.png. Yeah, I'm good with naming things, aren't I? I set the default filter, linear nearest. This keeps the images from being blurry when you zoom in. The editor object is, of course, our game state. As you can see, we make an editor object, and then this is initialize function. Then we go on to the draw function, which will take from where the X is on the camera to 14 past that, because that is the size of our screen in the game. If you go to conf, you can see this is our screen width and height. And if you do the math with 16 times 2 and then divide these numbers by that value, which is 32, then you get like it's 10 high. 320 divided by 32 is 10. I don't know the one on this one. It's 14. No, it's 15 because this is plus 9. So we go from wherever it's at to it plus 9. So this is 1 to 10. 1 to 10. Yeah, 1 to 10. And then 1 to 15. That, for some reason, that's not making sense in my mind right now, but it does. Trust me, it does. Yeah, it does, because 320 divided by 32 is 10. 1 to 10, that's 10 values. I was getting it a little confused because of the fact how different programming languages, well, Lua is kind of the oddball by starting counting at 1, and it sometimes throws me off a bit. If the tile's X exists, remember that X and Y is accessing an array within an array, basically. It's a two-dimensional array. So I can't just say if tiles X, Y, because if I did that and tiles X didn't exist, then it would error. So first we check if tile X exists, then tiles X, Y, and then if there is in the tile set something that has the value of tiles X, Y, because the tiles is a whole ton of numbers. This is what the tiles looks like. This is the map, the raw map data. And so the raw map data has these values. So if that tile exists, then it'll be this. And if it's a color, if it has a color, then we set that color. Else we're set it to white. That's the normal, just kind of normal color. Then we draw that image. So you can see we have that same kind of code here to find, excuse me, to find it. Then we go over to X minus camera X times tile size. That gives us our X coordinate. So the raw X value that we have here minus the camera, because wherever the camera is, we want to kind of offset that, then times the tile size so that we're not just getting 1, 2, 3, we're getting 0, 16, 32, or whatever, right? Same thing for the Y's. Then we say it's at 0. For some reason, this isn't word wrapping. Oh, yes, it is, actually. It's just, I'm dumb. So then we have 0. I'm trying to remember what 0 is. 0 is rotation. So we're not rotating at all, but we are scaling. So then we have scale on the x-axis, scale on the y-axis, and that's how we draw everything. We just look at the tile. Well, that's how we draw all the tiles. Then we do a very similar thing for the NPCs. So we say if the NPC, oh yes, this goes I equals 1 NPCs, if the NPC's I dot ID. I think I might have screwed this up. It's been a while since I've looked at this code, and this code was written hastily. The NPC's code was written in a slapdash effort. It was quick and dirty, and I think this is wrong. I think this is wrong. It works, but it's bad. But it's kind of the same idea of checking the tile set for the value at the correct coordinate. Only this is looking at based on a value within the NPCs and an ID, and I don't know why it's doing it that way. It doesn't make sense to me. You can see it's similar. We have the image, we have the X coordinate minus the camera times the tile size. Same thing here with the Y, rotation, scaling on the X and Y axis. Then we set the color to white so that we can draw the player image because it's supposed to be drawn with white. Player X, camera X, it's the same story all over again. And that's how we draw everything. So it takes an analytical mind to figure it out, but it's fairly simple once you get there. So then the movement key. Oh yes, the movement code, not the movement key. The movement code, not all of that is movement code that I scrolled through, but the movement code, I'm quite proud of this actually. So we have I did not mean to do that. We have movement, last keys, which equals false, and a table. No, wait. Yeah. No. We have movement, which equals false, and last keys, which is a table. Sorry, I forgot about the syntax of Lua for a moment. I should probably not have done this in one line like that, because it confuses you, like I just got confused. So you have a function called move with a value called moved. So we check if W is down and last key is 1, aka the first value in the last keys table, if that's a W, and we're going to a walkable tile set in the W direction, which would be up, which is y minus 1. Then we set our 1 minus 1, and we say that we have indeed moved. And we do this same kind of if this and that and that and that. We do that for each possible direction. Then if we have moved, we check, oh yes, this is to change the camera positioning. So if the absolute value of the x minus the camera is less than 5, so basically this is saying if we are less than 5 from where the camera is, then we need to make the camera move. If we are more than 9 from where the camera is, then the camera needs to move with us. Same thing on the y-axis, except it's with 3 and 6 instead of 5 and 9, and those values are based on the width and height and how many tiles can fit on the screen, and wanting the player to be somewhat near the center of the screen at all times. Then we have, let's see, we have movement is, oh yes, movement equals cron.after 1/5 move. And this is saying after every 1/5 of a second, execute the move function again. Now remember, the move function, basically it checks to see if we are moving in the same direction that we were moving, because last keys is kind of a thing that's saying what keys have been pushed. And so last keys 1 is the most recently pushed key, and I'll get to how that works in a moment. But the most recently pushed key is in the 1. So we're saying if we're pushing 1 right now, and the last key that we pushed was, if the if the last key we push is W, and we're pushing W, and we're going in a direction that we can, then go in that direction, and we have indeed moved. Then if we've moved, check that the camera is correct, and set the movement value here. Now, editor update. So if we have movement, basically if this exists and isn't nil, because remember, we specify it up here, but we give it a false value. So if it's not false, if it exists, which here it exists, it's a cron thing, it's a cron object, then movement update, so call the movement, the update method of movement with the delta time, so how much time has passed, call the update. And then basically what happens is if 1/5 of a second has happened, then the move function will be called. So this allows you to push a key down, and as long as you're holding that key down, every 1/5 of a second you will move in that direction. That's the point of that. So then we have editor key press. So this is the key pressed event. This, let's see, what was it do? Oh yes, okay, so the key pressed event. When you first press a key or press a key at any time, what happens? We put into the last keys table at the position of 1 the key that you have pushed. So this is how, like I said up here, last keys 1 is always the most recently pressed key. So this is how we do that right here. We save the last key pressed into the position 1. If the key was escape, then we say screw it and just leave. Else we call the move function, which at that point the key will be held down, so these is downs will be correct, and the last key will be whatever you just pushed, and you can go that way. Now, what's the whole deal with the last keys? Why don't we just check if the key is down? And basically that comes to an idea I had about movement that is based on how I've seen some games implement it, which is the way I've done it here. Basically, I can push and hold W, then tap A for a moment while still holding W, then and move to the left a little, and then let go of A and keep going in the direction of W, keep going up. And I can demonstrate that in the game real fast if you'd like to see it, because basically, so I'm going to go over here. I'm pushing and holding W, I'm tapping A, letting go, I'm still holding W, that didn't work for some reason. Oh, now it's working. Huh. I found an interesting bug with that. For some reason, if I do certain combinations of movements, it will backfire. Oh, you know what it is? I think it's because I stopped moving. That's what it is. Because the function only keeps going if you keep moving. So, as long as I'm only moving a little bit to one side or the other while I'm holding down the W key like this, everything's fine. But if I actually run into a wall by holding down the key for too long, then I'm not moving anymore. So it forgets about whatever key I might have held down because it just doesn't care anymore. That's why. Very interesting. So anyhow, the key, so we have this table here, right? It will keep getting filled with keys if we don't do something about it. So of course, we want to know when a key is released, and we have to find that key and remove it. So we go through, starting at the end, going, starting at the end, going to the value of 1, going -1 at a time. So we're starting at like if it's 5 or 10 or whatever, and we're looking for 1, and we're going backwards 1 at a time, so 10, 9, 8, whatever, right? That's the syntax in Lua for that. It's a little bit weird. If the key at that position is the same key, then we want to remove it because we don't want it in there anymore. So this allows you to have like push W, then push A, then push S, then let go of W, then push W, then let go of S, then put, lets you do whatever you want, and it'll keep everything in order properly. And that's the movement system. There we go. Yes. I think this whole if moved thing, I think I need to eliminate the if moved thing because it's completely unnecessary, because it just allows you to keep moving if you've already moved, but it doesn't matter if you've moved or not, because even if the movement function is called repeatedly, which it kind of should be anyhow, if it's called repeatedly, then you're gonna keep moving. Like it doesn't matter if it's called repeatedly when you're not holding a key down, because you're not holding a key down. I could be wrong though, because let's try that real fast, because I think what might happen, could be wrong on this, but what might happen now is we might get multiple loops going. I'm not sure. Let's try. No, we just have the one loop. Yeah, let's try that. Okay, so I'm holding down W, crashing into a wall, keep going. Basically, I've just found a bug and fixed it while recording this video. Very cool. Sorry, I think it's cool when you can just find something and fix it while making a fucking video about it, right? So we come down here to make tile. Make tile is a little helper function that when you give an XY, it checks if the X exists. If not, it creates it. If the X is less than the minimum X, we store the minimum and maximum X of the tiles. I forget why I store that, but it's to do with how I save the tiles. So we want to know the minimum and maximum. So if the X is less than the minimum X, then the minimum X is the X. If it's above the maximum X, then it's the maximum X. And that's an important thing to remember. If tiles at XY doesn't exist, then we want to create it with 0. Oh yes, this just makes a tile. It doesn't put anything special in there. It literally just makes it. So it puts the default 0, which means nothing, which means it renders a black square. If the Y is less than the minimum, then it sets it. If it's above the maximum, sets it. Same kind of deal. We have the selected tile. I don't remember why we have this. Oh yes, selected tile. That's the tile that you're going to place. So 0 is a black square, 1 is a piece of road, 2 is a piece of road with a white stripe, etc., etc. That's the tile set. Then we have mouse pressed. So mouse pressed, we get an X, Y, and button. We want to find the true X and Y. And the way we do that is divide by tile size and then add the camera position. And floor it, of course, so that we have a number and not a float. We have we make a tile at that position, so we just make sure we have the tile. I just do that right away. Forget everything else. I make it. Then, if the button was to wheel up, then we let's see. Then, oh yeah, you can change the tile. You can change which tile is there by simply scrolling up and down. I forgot about that. Yeah. I completely forgot that you could do that. That was actually the original way it worked. It only worked by scrolling up and down. There was no right click and left click. I added those later. This whole selected tile thing didn't exist. So anyhow, if you wheel up, it goes down in the tile list. If it's less than 0, then it doesn't exist. So it goes to tileset.count, which is the number of tiles. It's the maximum. So let's say there's 20 tiles. That would be 0 through 20. Count would be 20. It would actually... The actual number of tiles would be 21, but the count is 20 because there's only 20 real tiles. The 0 doesn't really count. The 0 is a placeholder. It's kind of a null value. It's just a, hey, I'm here. I could exist, but I'm not really anything. Wheel down does the exact opposite. This is the scroll wheel, the middle click on a mouse. Well, middle click would be M, not WDW. Wheel up, wheel down. That's what they stand for if you hadn't figured that out yet. Same thing here, basically. It's except this one's checking if you're under the minimum and going to the maximum. This one's checking if you're over the maximum and going to the minimum. If it's right, then we find out what tile is at our current position. The XY, the current position that you've clicked on then we set the selected tile to whatever value that is. So if you're on a road piece, so selected tile will become 1. If you're on the one with the stripe, it'll become 2. If you're on grass, it'll become whatever number grass is. I don't remember. Left does the exact opposite of that. So the thing of these is copy and paste. That's basically what they are. They're copy and pasting whatever tile that you've selected. So you can select a tile and copy it, select a tile and paste it. Then we have next equals next. Don't remember what that's for. Oh, that's outside of the function. That's the next thing. This is for something down here. This is for when we exit. Yes. And is this even right? Yeah, yes it is actually. So I can get rid of that. I don't need to worry about it. And we have local next equals next. What is this here for? Oh, okay. This is an optimization thing. Okay, there's a function in Lua. I don't actually know what this is. Interesting. I don't actually know what this does, but I assume it allows you to loop through things or something. I'm not sure. Whatever. It's a function in Lua. It's a global function. So I made a local copy of it, a local reference to it, so that when I access it, it's quicker. So we start at the minimum x and go to the maximum x. And we start at the minimum y and go to the maximum y. And we check if the x exists and the xy is 0. So we say, hey, does this exist, or is does this exist, or is this a nothing? If it's a nothing, then we set it to nil, which means actually a nothing. Like, let's delete this. We don't need this 0 in here, right? And that's all. Then we go, if next tiles x is nil, then tiles x is nil. I think this is like just looping through, maybe. Oh, now I remember. Next is like a repetitive, like you can repeatedly call next to get the next item within a table. So basically this right here is saying, hey, is there anything in tiles X at all? Is there anything in there at all? Or is it empty? If there's nothing in there at all, then why even have it? So we set it to nil. If X is the minimum X, then we want to, at this point, that's if it's wrong. That's if it doesn't exist anymore. So if it's the minimum X, then we actually want to set the minimum X up by 1. And this is kind of shitty. I really could just say +1, or this could say tiles.minx +1, or I actually no, this might be slightly ambiguous or confusing, but I don't know. Anyhow, you're saying increment it by 1 because the minimum is no longer this because we've just deleted this. It doesn't exist anymore. So it shouldn't be at the minimum. Because it'll just, when you go through this loops, it's just an unnecessary extra check. So then we want the max x to be number of tiles. That's very simple. The max x is very simple to set, and that's simply because, let me think for a moment. Sorry, I was wondering why max y isn't modified. Max x is very simple to set because it's simply number tiles. That's all it is. Because it's the first dimension in the two-dimensional arrays, very easy. The max y, however, that would be more difficult to calculate, and I just never bothered to implement it. I definitely could. It's just I'd have to think about it for a while, or at least I think I'd know how. Maybe, I don't know. Oh wait, yeah. See, I'm basically I even have a frickin' comment about it right here. Don't know how to check /set min y and max y. Well, I do, but it would be time consuming and boring. So yeah, I'm not gonna bother. And then we have collect garbage, which is another Lua thing. This is a global. I mean, I could set it to a local for more optimization, but there's no point. The next I set because there could be potentially thousands of tiles, so I want this to be rather fast. This only happens once. It's going to be slow no matter what. There's not much point in making a local of it. And this is basically, when we set these to nil, they still exist with the value of nil. And every once in a while, the garbage collector comes around and goes, are these nil? Okay, delete them. This makes sure, this is to explicitly say, hey, go through, find everything that shouldn't be there, and actually get rid of it. And you don't, the reason you don't actually completely delete something every time is because it would be slow. If you were in a loop doing something important and you deleted something, and it actually took the time to delete it, then it'd slow things down. And so I just have it, hey, actually get rid of it now. And then I want to write to tiles.lua the value of tiles. So this is actually saving the tiles that we've just got through cleaning up. Then we have write the NPCs, write the player. Oh yes, serialize cannot handle an image. or at least a love image. It could probably handle image data, but not a love image. So I delete it so that it doesn't freak out when I save it, and then save the camera, which again, the camera, player, NPCs, those are all very simple objects. I mean, the tiles object is really simple too. It's just like a two-dimensional partially complete array. A two-dimensional associative array that falls within what a normal array would be, but with holes in it, because we just got through deleting all the extra crap that's not actually there. NPCs. What was I going to say about NPCs? NPCs is extremely simple. It's just values. Player is just values, but it also has an image in it, and so we get rid of that image, so it becomes really simple, so we can actually save it. Camera is literally an X and a Y value, so again, very simple. And that's basically the core of this concept, the core of having this tiling, this tile set and this map that you can walk around on, and even the editor to make the tiles, not make the tiles, but place the tiles. That's the core concept behind it. So there you go. I'm actually going to go quickly look at tile set to show you this as well. Tile set, we have all the images are in this tile image folder right there. And so we have the names of the files, and we have the folder here, and that gives us an image value, and then color. This is a little function to help us out with this, basically. So we say tile image file color, and then we set this stuff up. And this is a local thing for image. Yeah, locals make things faster. So we have 0 is black, which is the nothing. Excuse me, the nothing. Then we have the road with the white stripe, like it said, and then blah blah blah. All these things. Oh yeah, these ones actually have a special color assigned to them. The rest don't. So when they get to here, color equals nil. It just sets a nil. Doesn't matter. And yes, we go down here. Oh yes, tile set is walkable. Simply checks. Basically, you might have noticed there's some comments here. This is saying, hey, this is 1. This is 11, this is 21, this is 22. And so basically, if k exists, like if it's actually a value, if it's not 0 or false or whatever, I forget if 0 is a value. I forget if 0 evaluates to false or not. I don't remember. Anyhow, if it exists, and it's above 0, and less than 11, or it's equal to 21 exactly, because 21 is grass, then return true. It's a walkable tile. Else false. So if it's any of these roof pieces or building window or the closed bits, which are those construction signs, then you can't walk on that. And then count equals number tile set. So number tile set will simply go down here and go 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and it'll be 26. And then we return it. And there you go. That's how we have our tile set. Pretty simple. It's kind of the same concept that goes into NPC set and where is it? There's card set. Oh, card bottoms and card tops. There's actually not a card set the same way. And it's all fairly simple, like I was saying. It's one of those things, it's fairly simple, but it's only fairly simple because I know it and it's been coded. Actually coding it could, depending on your skill level and your experience, could take a while or be like, oh yeah, I got this, or, you know, it all really depends. And I've been making stupid things that don't quite work as well as some things that do work quite well for long enough for this to be fairly simple. So thanks for watching. Hope this was informative, explainative. Is that a real word? Don't know. And let's see how long it was. Holy shit, I spent a half hour talking about this. Nice. Thanks for watching. As always, see you in space.